So I had this brilliant idea that I wouldn't shave in the new year, and maybe I'd bring about some run good. Unfortunately, number one, I haven't been running good, and number two, I look like this, which is not a good look, let me tell you. Wife doesn't appreciate it, and everybody looks at me like I'm a homeless man. So I think it's time for a change. Boom! Ha, much better. How's it going, guys? I'm just taking a minute here before I head to the casino to show you one of my most prized possessions, a gift I had received from my wife to hold a collection of mine. So let's check it out. So when I first started playing poker, I started collecting chips from every single place that I had played at. At some point I ended up just having a pouch of a bunch of chips, and my wife decided to get me this awesome frame to hold my whole entire collection. So in the upper portion we have where it all started at some home games in New York City. You see this building from Manhattan, which is a personalized chip that they had, as well as the first casino that I ever really played at, which was Foxwoods. I went to school in Boston, and so Foxwoods was one of the closest places I can play. So I spent a lot of time checking that out, playing there. Also on the East Coast we have the Borgata, and from there just kind of have a bunch of casinos from the Vegas area, California. The chips that I find the most special to myself are the ones from out of the country. I had gone on vacation with my wife to Barcelona, and while we were there we were out clubbing one night and stumbled outside, and there was the Grand Casino. So I had to go check that out the next day. Loved it there, it was amazing. Another chip that I kind of think is really cool is over here, the Atlantis Casino in the Bahamas. Spent a weekend, or about a week there, for the PokerStars Caribbean Adventure with a couple of buddies. That was also really cool. And down here, this chip we have from the Venetian Macau, and with that here is the Wynn Macau. Went there for a bachelor party, had to check out a couple of casinos there as well. That was really cool. Over here, this row, we have a bunch of the casinos in the Florida area, including the Hard Rock, a few kennel clubs, Pompano Park, Gulfstream. That was a lot of fun. Made my way up the East Coast, checking out all the casinos there. And then down bottom, as part of my honeymoon, we went to Australia, so went to the casinos there. Here we have the Reef in Cairns, Star City in Sydney, and the Crown in Melbourne. Also to the left of that, we have 5 Singapore dollars from Sentosa. I'd also gone to Singapore for, I think it was a bachelor party or a wedding, maybe a combination of both, so played there. That was actually really interesting because you could actually smoke inside of the casino. Speaking of smoking, now I'm coughing. But yeah, so you're able to smoke. That was kind of crazy. I had never experienced that before. And yeah, that kind of is it. We have a bunch of casinos in the Vegas area. O'Shea's, which no longer has a poker room. The Golden Nugget. Aria, Day 101, Hollywood Park. I actually need to get a second frame to hold all of my new chips. Got a bunch of new ones. So that's kind of the collection. Oh, also down bottom, one I had forgotten was this Rio tournament chip from the WSOP. I've played a couple of tournaments. Obviously it's illegal to take chips from there, but I was able to buy one off of eBay. I guess somebody else stole it, or I don't know what. So I decided to add that to the collection since I have played some events. And yeah, so if you're interested in getting one of these for yourself, I'm going to include a link how to get this off of Amazon. There's actually some different sizes. This one holds, I think, 63 chips. There's a larger one, a smaller one, but I think it's really cool. It's kind of a nice memento from being able to play at a few places. So yeah, check it out. Now to give the people what they've been waiting for. Here we are in a 5-5-10 pot limit Omaha game, which is what I've been playing mostly as of late. Variance hasn't been my friend, and it's time to turn that around. In this first hand, I open Ace-Ace 9-8 with nut spades to 40. The button calls and the small blind calls as well. The flop is Ace-3-4 rainbow. The small blind checks, and I bet 75 into 130. The button calls and the small blind folds. The turn is a queen of hearts, so now there's 2 hearts. I check because the button is a spaz, and I really believe he can't help himself. I don't want to bet since he only has 400, and if I bet, it doesn't leave him enough room to get silly with his air balls. He bets 220, and I jam. He ends up tank calling off the 180 more. The river is a 6 of hearts, which should be a fairly bad card, but I'm still good. As I suspected, he probably had a rather weak hand that was most likely drawing nearly dead. With that pot, we're up $550, and hopefully this is just the start to a really profitable night. On to the next hand, which I have to preface with, I swear I play more than just aces. A reg opens the button to 25, which is a really small raise. He does this often with trashy hands that he wants to play but doesn't want to create too big of a pot with. The small blind, who is an active player, 3 bets to 80. I pick up Ace-Ace Jack-5 with nut spades in the big blind, and I elect to flat for a couple of different reasons. I'm deep and I can't really re-raise to any reasonable amount that gives me a decent SPR to play post-flop with. SPR is stack to pot ratio, which is a ratio of how much you're playing to the total pot. The smaller the SPR, the easier a hand plays, as your decision is rather binary, all in or fold. I'd rather mask my hand than announce aces to what are 2 competent opponents. Also, it gives the option for the straddler or the button to get out of line pre-flop, at which point I'll be able to pot to a much larger amount and put my opponents to a decision for their stack. The straddler calls and the button calls as well, and we go 4-handed to a flop of Ace Queen 10 rainbow. The 3-better leads 180 into 320. I flat and everyone else folds. The turn is the 8 of diamonds for a full rainbow. He tanks and checks. Given I have the jack blocker, it's unlikely that he has a straight and I probably have him crushed. I'd rather check back and allow him to barrel off with his hands that don't have any equity, since he is most likely check folding to any aggression. The river is a queen and he leads 220, a rather small bet. I make it 620 and he angrily snap mucks, saying he doesn't know why he bet in that spot. I don't know either, but I wish he had bet more. Thanks for the money anyway though. In our last hand of note, it folds to me on the button and I open to 30 with King, Queen, Queen 5. The small blind, big blind, and straddle all call, and we go 4-way to a flop of 10 Jack Queen with 2 hearts. The big blind, who we have a bit of history with, leads for 60 into 120. The straddler folds. With top set and open-ended, our decision is whether to raise or just call. When he leads into the field here, I suspect he's doing it with the nuts quite often. By raising, I won't get action from much else besides flush draws and hands that have me beat. If he in fact does have ace king, I'm not a favorite with the set and straight draw to chop, so I'd rather just call and play a pot in position. The turn is the deuce of diamonds and he bets 180 into 240. Again, I don't see the value in raising, so I call. The river is another deuce and he checks. The pot is 600 and I want to size my bet large enough where it doesn't look like I have the nuts begging for a call, but also, if I were bluffing, I'd probably be betting on the larger side to get a fold. I decide to bet 440, which I think should have been more like 520. He is rather frustrated and ends up calling. We ship another sizable pot to end our night. After all is said and done, I end up winning what is a much needed $1,500 given the downswing we've been on lately. As always, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check out my other videos for more action. Please hit that like button if you appreciated this episode and subscribe for future content.